family and fellow soldiers. I'm the Professor, and this is the moment of truth. Oh, say do you see the swastikas on the mall in Washington? Have you heard the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse on the horizon yet? Me neither. But the good folks over at MSNBC and CNN have told us that the stormtroopers and the neo-Nazis will be taking over the town square any moment now. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm hiding in my basement as I record this morning's briefing for you. A lot of efforts are going to be made to make you think that this is a day of doom, or at the very least, very ominous. And on the right, they're going to be trying to convince you that this should be a celebrated day. Well, in reality, we shouldn't be doing either. While it's true that Trump might do some things that indirectly benefit us, let's not get carried away here. The problem is the Orange Man didn't promise us anything. Whatever he does, he certainly won't be telling anybody that it was meant for us and that he has to do more for us, which, by the way, he should. The only reason that he carried so many swing states was because black folks stayed home, but he doesn't mention that. Same way that when the Republicans were trying to figure out how did they intimidate black people or put up some sort of phony hysteria to scare black folks from the polls, he didn't say don't do that either. Trump is a creature of self-interest, and we should be also. At long last, Trump is about to retake office, and we've been told for years now that this is going to be the end of the American experiment in democracy. Well, you can't lose what you never had. So, as the Orange Man prepares to rape, pillage, plunder, and sow salt upon the earth, it's only fair to ask, what, if anything, we should expect for the next 4 years? With Trump's return now only hours away, the question is, what will become of his much ballyhooed promises, particularly when it comes to immigration, the mass migration raids that he's been promising? The white media has gone from talking about him as if it was the apocalypse to now talking about his proposals simply in terms of feasibility. Gee, how quickly they've changed their tune now that he's won the election, and they all want to get something from him, like they were 8 years ago. They did the same song and dance then, too. Kind of makes you think that maybe all their gloom and doom talk about him was nothing more than hysteria, doesn't it? They knew it, even if the rubes who watch their propaganda don't. USA Today is complaining that Trump isn't even in office yet, and he's already breaking promises. And their proof of this is that Trump stopped talking about $2 a gallon gas, so that's the proof that he's walking away from that promise. Well, if that's the white media standard, the Orange Man's in good company, because Biden began backtracking on the few feeble promises he had made to black America before he got into office, too. And then, after he was sworn in, he immediately began telling everybody all the things he couldn't do. Whatever happened to his so-called Lift Every Voice plan? Remember that one? After he won election, he never talked about it again. And neither did Kamala Harris. Whatever became of his White House-level Police Accountability Commission? He said that he was too busy to do it and that Congress should handle it instead. The John Lewis Voting Act, there was one half-hearted attempt to kind of bring it to a vote, but it didn't get much farther than that attempt. And as for the George Floyd Policing Act, it didn't even get that far. And that's how it went on and on for black America for 4 years. Now remember, when Biden took office, Democrats had control of both the House and the Senate, just like Trump has control of the House and Senate now. So, we'll be able to make an apples-to-apples comparison between what Biden didn't do for his voters and what Trump does do for the voters who put him into office. And I'm willing to bet right now that Trump's going to do more for the maggots than Biden ever pretended to do for us. Biden and his ilk were doing was serving black America a bunch of nothing burgers and then trying to get us to ask for seconds. Look at what's going on right now as Biden slithers, or rather shuffles, out the back door of the White House. He just got through issuing his last slate of pardons, including one for Marcus Garvey. I'm not making that last one up. Yes, he pardoned Marcus Garvey. Now, you have the usual suspects chiming in on this, but my question is, why didn't Barack Obama do this? Or Bill Clinton or any of them, huh? How come Jimmy Carter didn't do it? I'm just asking for a friend. In response to this pardon for Marcus Garvey, one of Marcus Garvey's sons is reported as having said, quote, "Now his meaningful message can be taught proudly to future generations." What's this now it can be taught proudly stuff? Taught proudly? Who in black America has ever been ashamed of Marcus Garvey? We fought for him to be taught in schools. In fact, the reason anyone even knows who Marcus Garvey is because we promoted him. Foundational black Americans were never ashamed to talk about Garvey or teach about him. We've always taught about him, and we didn't need white society's approval, and certainly didn't need this racist government's permission to do it either. So where's this finally it can be taught proudly stuff coming from? I think we can assume this guy's talking about Jamaica, because Jamaica didn't support Marcus Garvey after he was railroaded into that illegal deportation. They haven't thought about Marcus Garvey since forever. And the only reason they actually bring him up on the few occasions they dare to is because they're trying to basically tell black Americans, he was a Jamaican man. You tried to lay claim to Marcus Garvey. He was a Jamaican. You little Americans, you need to stay away from our heroes. Go back and listen to my recent tribute video to Khalid Muhammad and the part where I talked about how the boomers and most of the World War II generation ignored Malcolm X when he was alive, and they wouldn't even claim him. That is until Spike Lee made that biopic about him, and then suddenly everybody knew Malcolm X and absolutely loved him. Yeah, they loved him now. And the same goes for Marcus Garvey. He found his fame and made his mark in the world, not in Jamaica, but in the U.S. And it wasn't Jamaican immigrants in the U.S. who were pumping him up, it was us. There's been this effort to rewrite the history books and claim that Jamaicans were always down with him, but that's just not true. So I guess that's why Jamaica's prime minister said that they welcome this pardon and that this is the first step to undo a wrong against a civil rights leader and Pan-Africanist. The damned insult. This is the leader of Jamaica, and while Jamaica sent a number of true soldiers to the U.S., in the last 50 years they've also sent a lot of tethers too, and these individuals have gone overboard attacking us. And we're the only reason that these people are even in the United States. Winsome Sears is the current lieutenant governor of Virginia, and she's a Jamaican born in Kingston. And she's also been running around saying stupid stuff like, we need to move on from slavery. What's this we stuff? Now, she would never tell any other group of people they need to move on from anything. And yes, she says that to black people in America, and that's how you know this one was brought here to be a certified tether. She wears her bootlicking credentials with pride, and no one of any note in Jamaica called her out on this. In fact, their online website seemed to celebrate her election victory, completely glossing over all this foul stuff she says. No surprise. Seems they don't have much of a problem with her. The Prime Minister of Jamaica talks about undoing the wrong against this Pan-Africanist. But the actual wrong was done by Jamaica, who refused to support Marcus Garvey when he was alive, and who cultivated self-hating trash like Winsome Sears, a woman who, if she had been around back then, she would have led the charge to have Marcus Garvey deported. Jamaica and the culture of tethers that it's created are what killed Pan-Africanism. They did what J. Edgar Hoover and the rest of these racists in the U.S. never could, destroyed the ability of black people in the U.S. to unconditionally ally themselves with black people in the islands, which is what has been going on inside Jamaica for the longest time, a total destruction of their own loyalty system. And they've been exporting garbage like Winsome Sears ever since. So while we acknowledge Marcus Garvey's contribution to the struggle we've waged, we also have to make sure that the story is told the way that it really happened. Nobody's going to be allowed to come along and change it up, not the white ideological descendants of those who persecuted Garvey, nor the backstabbing elements in Jamaica who refused to help him at home or abroad and who never put any respect on his name. But this is what the white media expects us to get happy about. Biden pardoning someone who is dead already, a man who can't benefit from this pardon at all. Meanwhile, Biden didn't lift a finger to use his office to fight for the survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre. These are people who are still alive and who he could help, but he wants to give empty gestures and tell you and me that this is what matters. You know, these do-nothing maneuvers remind me of when Trump pardoned Jack Johnson. I put pardon in quotes. Again, done decades after the fact, when Jack Johnson can't possibly benefit from it, and a PR move that meant absolutely nothing. So I'm struggling to figure out what the difference is between Biden and the Orange Man, because I'm not seeing any. And speaking of not making a difference, Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD is bending the knee on whether he'll oppose Trump's would-be mass deportation should they come to New York City. When asked about it, Officer Adams tried to give his own pathetic, clumsy attempt at a non-answer answer, saying, "The law is the law." And the white media is continuing to go in on him regardless. And you can tell the pressure's getting to him. They're saying that Officer Adams is hoping that Trump is going to give him a federal pardon. That's why he met with Trump and had a nice little conversation with him. That's what they're saying. He's hoping to set himself up for a pardon if he can get Trump to do it. Well, I guess it makes sense. Officer Adams has been kissing white racist behinds in New York for decades now, so I'm sure one more will mean nothing to him. And if he kisses the Orange Man's wrinkled rump extra sweet, I'll tell you right now, the chances are Trump will actually do it. That is, if Officer Adams has anything he can offer Trump in exchange. The Orange Man doesn't do favors for free. But I want to say something else about these mass deportations that we're supposed to be getting excited about or scared of, depending on who you listen to. Trump's already begun to slither back on that. as I told you that he would, because Elon Musk wants to continue to have ready access to more people who are willing to work for him. Steve Bannon reportedly doesn't like Musk, but you know how these white supremacists are. They can be sitting here wagging their fingers at each other one minute, and the next moment it's back to business as usual. The problem for Bannon is Musk is already inside the White House. Meanwhile, Bannon's on a podcast. He's not the right-wing power broker, influence peddler, would-be Machiavelli that he once was celebrated as being by the white media. Trump has put many of his first-term flunkies right back in the White House again, but Bannon's not one of them. I think that says more than a little. Trump's own so-called border czar has already been telling Republicans they need to temper their expectations, that he would need a minimum of at least 100,000 additional beds to detain the illegals, which would be more than double the number ICE currently has. So he's appealing to the incoming Republican majority for more money, which, if Steve Bannon is any indication, is basically going to be more giveaways to friends of Trump, anybody who comes along trying to get themselves a contract. So, will there be some flashy show rates for the camera so Trump can point and say, look, I'm doing something? Or will there be the massive resources devoted to this that the job will actually require? Follow the money. There's an entire economy that has come about as a result of the last 60 years of unrestricted illegal entry into the U.S., the banks who rely on illegals for wire transferring fees, unscrupulous employers who will hire anyone so long as they work for pennies. And this is at all levels, from farms and restaurants at the local level, to landscapers at the county level, and construction companies at the state level, and even the huge corporations like Tyson and Walmart who hire them. Illegal immigration is big business, with big money behind it. Is Trump really going to buck the system? Or will he obediently toe the line? Because truth be told, when it comes to the donor class, that's what Trump has always done. His own inner circle is resistant to the idea, and while it's true that the people Elon Musk wants to come work for him are very different than the low-skill masses on the border, the reality is that Musk has far more in common with those billion-dollar corporations and wealthy donors who make their money off illegal immigration than he does with the rank-and-file MAGA supporter or even walking trash like Stephen Miller. But today, the Fourth Reich begins. There will be racists in government who write laws meant to target us, a relentless media assault that will demonize black people, and police will now be emboldened to commit violence against us if they think they can get away with it. In other words, business as usual. But we should take this as an opportunity, not just to watch as those who thought they could ignore us gnash their teeth, but also to intensify our own efforts to delegitimize the bootlicks and start eyeing offices that we can capture. Yes, there's going to be the racists who are going to be more vocal now, but then again, what else is new? Actually, in the aggregate, it's a good thing because a lot of these folks who actually have been keeping their mouths shut, they're going to start to feel like they can let their tongues get a little bit loose, and we'll be able to actually identify the bastards. But also because people try to ignore white supremacy unless it's in their face. It's sad but true. Too many black people were hoping that we could shirk our responsibility to crush anti-black racists by outsourcing it to some two-faced Democrat, and that don't work. The only thing that changed police from being untouchable to now regularly being punished for their crimes was when black people stopped relying on Democrats and took matters into our own hands. So we should make sure we're ready to defend ourselves. Because unlike the Biden years, when we defend ourselves from police violence or any other anti-black racist attacks, it's going to be less likely to be questioned since people will attribute the police violence to Trump, and more ready to say that some sort of resistance is justified. But we can't allow it to stop there. That's what happened after the uprisings of 2020. The goal cannot be to see who we can get to crush white supremacy for us, any more than the goal should be to see some white leftist agenda imposed in the feeble hopes that they might accidentally do something for us. The goal is and must be to make sure that no matter who loses the election, we win. That's called empowerment. Because we understand that the reprobates who become president in this country are nothing more than the guardians of white supremacy, doesn't matter what political party they're under. If they didn't come from us, then they're not for us either. So while they're taking an oath to the Constitution, we're going to be renewing our own oath to our code. And no election can undo that. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Kulu Batangai, Mark Singleton, Suleiman Alaji, Wesley Monroe, and Morris Bodden. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.